Everything I do on YouTube, or in life for that fact, is all unscripted. I have a half-ass plan going in and generally wing it from there on out. It keeps life interesting. And this is actually where the left and the people who are trying to subvert our Constitution and our way of life are making a huge mistake. They think that we're like them. Everything's scripted, everything's planned. When the everyday person knows the best you can do is have a loosely laid plan, because more than likely things aren't going to go according to script. And that's actually why they operate like they do and are thrown off so much when things don't go according to plan. Because they think that everything has to be rigid. And when things go wrong, it limits their flexibility. And they panic. The Japanese and the German army actually had the same problem during World War II. The American army was taught to think on their feet. The Marines actually have the best saying for the battlefield, and it applies to life too. Improvise, overcome, adapt. And we have been witnessing that play out, the lack of the ability of the left to be able to respond to situations like that ever since Trump got elected. And it's been being demonstrated on a regular basis. How it is even possible that people still think it's the same old game, as I've said before, is beyond my comprehension. Because it's not the same old game. Obviously things have changed. But some people are so rigid in their way of thinking that they won't accept that and or accept the evidence that says things are different than they are. Most people are well aware, and have been for quite some time, that the majority of the politicians in this country had and have sold out to a different system. And now that that system is being exposed and or dismantled, you would think that it would offer people a little more optimism and a little more hope. But I suppose it's like being in one failed relationship after another, always expecting the worst and never having any faith that someone else is going to come along and uphold the things that we hold dear to ourselves. Truthfulness, responsibility, and the ability to follow through on their words and actually get the job done. I mean, I get it. I've been there myself. But, like I said before in many videos, I don't have the luxury of ignoring the symptoms of the problem and or the solution. So I have to be able to change my thinking along the way. And that has been lacking on the side of the left and the deep state throughout all of this, as has been demonstrated with their constant push for impeaching the president. I mean, I really shouldn't have to bring up what they ran on to achieve the majority in the House. They ran on solving the problems of this country and working for the betterment of America. When the proof is in the pudding, and that isn't what's been happening. So what goes on here? Well, it's all about to come out, at leastwise the basics of what was done before and during the election to subvert the process. And that's what they're freaking out about, because that's the main part of the knot. And when that starts to unravel and everybody begins to understand what has been going on, not that they don't already, the tide will turn on the whole thing. Most people aren't authoritarians. Most people aren't that rigid in their thinking. And most people will turn away from the authoritarian system that they were trying to set up if it's all exposed before it's actually instituted. And that's the main driver for all this bullshit. If they were trying to distract us with something else, it wouldn't be what we're witnessing today. Because the last thing the New World Order and or this authoritarian system that they have been trying to set up outside of our Constitution wants to be is exposed. It can't work that way because too many people know about the Constitution, or at least have a rough idea of what it's supposed to stand for. And when this all comes out, and don't shit yourself, it's gonna. People are gonna be highly offended. Even though they've accepted the fact a long time ago that's basically what was going on. That's why I have said many times, and it got me in a little bit of trouble last night, but I don't give a shit. I'll keep saying it. Everybody in this country should have the right to say what they believe or what they want. And we should all have the balls to point and laugh if they're wrong. And take the time to express our own opinions to get other people back on the right track. That's what freedom is all about. And that's what they're trying to subvert. And desperately trying to hide. So once again, what wouldn't you say? What wouldn't you do to avoid the consequences of committing treason of your government's constitution? when that punishment is death. People who are terminally ill go through this all the time. There's what they want to believe, even though it's contrary to the symptoms. And when the diagnosis is made, they still don't want to believe it because it jeopardizes what they believe. When the reality of the situation is you have to be able to change your thinking along the way, or you'll never get better. The problems will never be solved, and the symptoms will always be there. And in this case, the patient is our country. And the symptoms can't afford to be overlooked. And the cure needs to be implemented in our daily lives, or things will never get better. And that's just the way it is. So what's going to come out in the IG report? What are they so afraid of? Well, I don't know what the contents of the entire report would be, but I can make a general prediction that in order to cover up what the Obama administration and previous administrations, for that fact, have been doing, there was a plan implemented to either subvert the election and swing it towards their candidate, Hillary Clinton, and or undermine and remove from office the man who they knew could potentially expose their treasonous behavior. And it included using the intelligence agencies to promote false information, to lie to the courts, to obtain illegal warrants for surveillance and spying on the very person that they were trying to undermine. That's the gist of it. Does it go a hell of a lot deeper than that? You bet your ass it does. Because when you're diagnosed with cancer, in most cases, it's a hell of a lot worse than you think. Especially if you've ignored the symptoms along the way. And if you refuse the treatment, well, the outcome's obvious. And a lot of people, unfortunately, who say they believe in this country are ignoring the treatment, are volunteering for the death of their way of life, even though they have said adamantly along the way that it's what they believe in. Maybe it has to do with the fact I've been swinging a wrench so long. But I firmly do believe, and have experienced in my life, as a matter of fact, you're riding in it right now, that there's nothing that can't be accomplished if you're willing to stand back, look at the problems, roll your damn sleeves up, and decide that you're going to do something about it. We all have that in us in our own way. Believe it or not, even though you might feel helpless in the situation, it's a lot like white blood cells. Not every white blood cell has the exact same function. Each one has their own little special thing that they can do in order to fight disease. And in this case, it could be as simple as talking to your neighbor, or finally using your social media platform for what it should have been being used for all along. Speaking out against what they're trying to do and promoting your ideas instead of going along with what everybody else might be saying. And if we all take the time to do that in some way, shape, or form, overall, see the pheasants? I like seeing that. I hate seeing them dead on the side of the road. Far too good at eating to waste. And the same can be said for freedom. When it's good, it's real good. And when it's gone and laying on the side of the road, that's when the real regrets begin. Because something could have been done. Anything could have been done. As opposed to just throwing up your hands and saying it's hopeless. We should exercise the little bit of freedom that we have left. Because I don't know who said it, but I believe in it. And as far as I'm concerned, it's damn true. When your freedom is threatened, you should live so free that others redefine their own. And that's where we're at. And as I said before, eventually, a lot of us believe we're all going to have to meet our Maker. And He's going to ask us, and already know the answers, to why we didn't participate. Why weren't we willing to raise our voices and exercise our free will in order to stop other people from being persecuted? In order to do something about other people being used or suffering. And I don't think there's a good answer for overlooking what we already know. As a matter of fact, I believe that will be viewed as a little hypocritical. And using the prefabricated excuse that someone else died for our sins and gave us the right to overlook what goes on right under our noses ain't gonna fly. Because it should be fairly obvious to anybody with a IQ bigger than this shoe size. This whole system is set up on free will. And when you throw it away, give it away, or let it be stolen from you, it undermines the whole thing.